It is hard to believe that it has already been over 120 days since Surface Duo 2 did come out. And that means it's time for me to do something that I love doing on this channel. And that is a long-term review for Surface Duo 2. I feel like there's no better place to start off than with the hardware. How has the hardware of Surface Duo 2 held up? And honestly, I can tell you that it has held up remarkably well. I really have no complaints at all. The hinge continues to be stiff, smooth, a joy to use. My screens, while having no screen protector on them, continue to be totally scratch-free, just as my original Surface Duo could attest to having the same sort of luck. And a lot of that's because the thing's just closed. I have people ask me all the time, what's a good screen protector for Surface Duo or Duo 2? And I've reviewed some for the original Duo, but I've not really reviewed any for Duo 2, and the biggest reason is, well, it's really twofold. One, the thing has curved screens on the inside, which makes screen protectors really hard to find good ones anyways. And two, the thing's always closed, so I just don't worry about scratching this thing's screen, and so far that's been totally fine for me. There's not a nary a mark on it, if you will. As for the outside, I do have a D-brand skin on it, and that has protected things really, really well. This thing looks exactly the same as the day I got it. I do also have the bumpers installed. These are the official bumpers, and they've not actually held up quite as well as I would hope. If we go to the overhead camera here, if you see right there on the edge how some of that is more shiny than the rest, and you can also see a bit more there seems to be like an outer layer that's almost wearing off and peeling away on that edge there on the bumper. And that's, I mean, look, that's a little bit annoying maybe, but it's nothing that's really all that concerning to me. The rest of Duo has held up extremely well. I did also drop the thing once and it landed on this edge here. Can you tell that that edge right there is slightly flatter than the rest of the edge? And actually, I think that's a really good positive thing, because rather than cracking, it just kind of dented slightly, which I think is the better behavior than being too hard and risking cracking. But otherwise, hardware has held up just fine. I've got no scratches on my camera module at all, no scratches on my screen. Hardware is looking very strong. What about battery life? For me, battery life on Surface Duo 2 has been just okay. Not great, certainly could be way, way better. It's a very thin device with two very big screens, so I understand why battery life isn't particularly great, but I tend to have no trouble getting through the day. My day basically looks like this. I wake up about 6 o'clock. The thing's usually off the charger when I actually roll out of bed, closer to like 6:30 or so, and it's pretty much off the charger from there. Now, if I wanted to make it all the way around until I'm back home and I'm ready to go to bed, probably 9 o'clock or so, I'm rolling towards the bedroom, and it's going to be plugged in at that point. Could I make it all the way to that? Absolutely. Now, in my routine, I do tend to, if I go out of the house, I'll just instinctively plug it in when I put it in my car dock, because it's just simple and it's there. And I also have my screen timeout set to 30 minutes because I want my screens to stay on constantly when they're in my car like that. I want them just to stay on forever. So that hurts my battery. So I stick it in there, I plug it in, and I drive. And typically, wherever I'm going, I'm going to pick up 10-12% battery just from doing that. And then when I come back, maybe I'll plug it back in again. And then if I'm sitting here at my desk, a lot of the time, I'll just instinctively plug the thing in. There's always a cable right there. And by virtue of that, I typically am going to bed with 50 or 60% battery. Again, if I remove that behavior and I just tried to make it all day without charging, I absolutely could. I tend to get somewhere in the 4 or 5 hours of screen on time. And it's important to note here, I'm not saying that it can only get 4 or 5 hours of screen on time. Screen on time is not the end-all be-all of battery life that people seem to think it is. It depends heavily on what you're doing on your phone. If I'm going to play Call of Duty or an emulator or PUBG Mobile, my screen on time is going to be very low on a lot of phones, because that's a very intensive thing to be doing. It depends wildly on what you're doing on your phone. I'm saying that my use, when I wake up at 6 and I go to bed 9 or 9:30, I use my phone 4 or 5 hours, and when I'm done, I tend to have 50-ish% left while charging the way that I do charge. And if I didn't charge the way that I do charge, I'll probably be going to bed probably around like 20% battery with 4 or 5 hours of screen on time. So you could take from there, and you could probably add another hour or maybe even 2 hours if you're doing things differently, you're trying to save battery or what have you. That's just what I get. I think the battery is sufficient. It gets me through the day just fine. It's not a 2-day phone. It is a 1-day phone, but it can get you through 1 day. As long as you're someone that doesn't want to use your phone for like 9 hours straight at a time, you're going to be okay. What about in regards to performance? For me, Surface Duo 2 is extremely fast. I don't really push my phone all that hard because I don't really game on my phone. I pretty much just do normal stuff, but all that stuff runs very, very quickly. Duo 2 never leaves me waiting, and that's true of pretty much any modern smartphone because they're all so extremely fast. The only place that Surface Duo, I think, still needs a bump in performance is when you are using the camera app, because it's just still a little bit laggy and slow sometimes. All right, sorry, past Shane. Future Shane has to step in here because, as usual for me, shortly after finishing the edit for this video, the February 25th update for the Surface Duo 2 did come out, and oh my lord, did it make a massive difference on the camera. I was about to tell you that the camera app was still laggy and slow, in particular when first launching, when rotating, doing things like that. That's just not true for me anymore at all. It is unbelievably snappy and fast. There's almost zero shutter lag at this point. The camera app is running tremendously well. And in fact, I'm going to attach now a video that I just now took using the screen recorder to show you exactly how fast the camera app actually is now. All right, so I've cleared everything out. This will be a fresh launch of the camera. Let's see how fast that is. Tapping it now, and the camera is up. That's pretty fast for a fresh launch. Let's try rotating. That is pretty fast, guys. You can see the picture in the viewfinder as I'm rotating, how quickly it is keeping up with that. Let's try snapping a picture. Boom. That is fast. Look at that. That is so much faster. Now let's close it. Now that it is in RAM, look how fast it is now. That's pretty good, guys. I'm pretty happy with this. How crazy is that? And rest assured that even in low light, up until the point that the night mode kicks in, there's just no shutter lag. Unbelievable, fantastic update by Microsoft. Performance on Duo 2 is very, very good. Gaming is totally fine on it. In fact, if you want to see a video where I do some gaming on it, I will try to remember to drop that into the description should you want to check that out. Snapdragon 865 is still fast. Let's talk about camera performance here. While we've already just mentioned it, let's just talk about it. For me, camera performance has been totally fine. It's not fantastic. I will freely tell you that my Z Fold 2 takes better pictures. My wife's Pixel 5 takes better pictures. Her Z Flip 3 probably takes better pictures, but it does have some advantages on Duo 2. It's probably very, very close in that range. Let me show you some pictures here that I took recently while I was out enjoying some milder weather, and I kind of talk about some of these things. So this was I believe, a common eastern newt, if I'm not mistaken. If you're a wildlife expert and you're familiar with animals here in Eastern Tennessee, let me know. This guy was crossing a trail out by a lake, and so I picked him up to get him off the trail to save his life. And you can see here, this is a quite detailed picture, and you can actually see here how shallow the focus is on some of these modern smartphone sensors, because this is in focus, but as even his tail and his head's a little closer, his tail's a little further away, and those fall out of focus. You can actually see some dead skin there or something on my finger. This is a very, very sharp, very, very detailed image, and the colors look really, really accurate. Checking out the ultra wide lens here of that exact lake, you can see this is again a pretty decent picture here. This is pretty accurate. It was a overcast gray day. We've just had a ton of rain, so everything looks brown and muddy. And if we zoom in here, again, this is an ultra wide, okay? So zooming in, that's a pretty decent normal amount of detail for an ultra wide camera. I mean, it's not spectacular, but it's totally passable. Here's a picture I took covertly trying to snap a picture of my koi because they're cold and they're skittish right now, but I used my telephoto lens to sneak up on them, and I would say for using the telephoto lens, let's just clear up here, that's a pretty detailed, decent looking photo. The telephoto lens is really pretty solid on Duo 2, unless of course you do something crazy and you try to push it up to 10 times zoom, in which case you get something that looks like this, which, let me just tell you, If my wife was using her Z Flip that doesn't have a telephoto lens and she tried to punch in 10 times, her picture would look even worse than this. Because actually having any actual telephoto optical zoom is always going to be superior than just digitally punching in. So here's the thing. Does this look fantastic? Does this look like something taken by an S22 Ultra with their 10x optical zoom? No, of course not. It's a 2x zoom, okay? It is what it is. But am I happy that I was able to get a decent enough picture of a turtle that you can look at and say, that is a turtle? Yeah, I am. It's fine. In fact, I was able to take a picture of the moon the other night, zoomed in 10 times. You can actually see detail on it. I mean, again, this isn't a Samsung quality picture of the moon. I get that. It's not Xiaomi. It's not crazy zoom. But we're talking about a Surface Duo. We're talking about a camera that is supposed to be straight up garbage. And I just don't think that that's the case. And of course, I've talked about in the past some places where it does suffer a bit in low light. And I've talked about Gcam ports, which you should definitely check out if you own it. Just keep a good Gcam port sitting there so that if you need to take a picture in the nighttime in the dark, pull that guy out and you're ready to rock and roll. Video continues to be a place where this thing does struggle, okay? This, as I'm approaching this little overflow pond here, you can hear all the frogs, super cool to hear. You can see that the stabilization is freaking terrible. It is absolutely horrible. Video is fine if you're sitting very still, right? You're not walking, but as soon as you start moving, video is really bad. For an example of video more sitting still in an indoor setting, you can kind of see the level of quality here. And here, look, it's still not great. The level of clarity is still not super impressive. But if you're not moving around a ton, it's passable. It will get the job done. I would be remiss if I didn't mention, though, the actual act of taking pictures on Surface Duo, because on most phones, it's pretty straightforward. On Duo 2, it is a little bit different. So if you don't know what I'm talking about, let's go to the overhead camera here, and I'll show you. So on your Surface Duo, you're going to launch your camera, and by default, you're going to have your recently taken photos here and your viewfinder here. And of course, you can just hold the thing up and take your pictures as you want to. You can also rotate it this way and take pictures. One of my favorite things to do actually is a little bit weird. I actually like to put the camera on that one side and hold it like this and take a picture of the world. And I know I've literally had people in my comments tell me that I'm lying, that there's no way that I actually like this, but I do like this because if I'm taking pictures outside, it's very bright outside, and normally you're doing this thing and the sun is pointed at you and it's hard to see. Well, with Duo, you can literally do this. So I'm not looking into the sun. I'm very photosensitive, by the way, so bright lights really bother me. So again, if you think I'm lying, swear words. I can do this, and I can see out my camera and take my picture, and it's really good. Or if I'm filming a video like that one I showed you earlier, I filmed it like this, holding it like this and walking forward so that I wasn't having to hold it out at arm's length. It just helps me brace things better as well. It's more comfortable for me. Now, a big problem with Duo 2 is that taking pictures pretty much is a two-handed affair. It's really, really hard, if not impossible, to take a picture with one hand. I mean, you're gonna have to hold it like this, and then I guess use your volume down key to take the picture, but it's super uncomfortable. So if you're taking pictures of stuff that's moving, you got something in your hand, all this stuff, not a great photography experience there. But if it's a very deliberate experience and you've got both your hands free, it is definitely more than passable, but that's something you should definitely consider. Of course, we've had some features added over the last few months as well. The Surface Pen now will respond to different sorts of clicks, right? A click, a double click, and a long click can now be programmed to do different things. That's pretty cool. The Your Phone app now has access to full apps that can be launched. I've talked about this already. I use the Your Phone app every single day, all the time. It is fantastic to see your notifications here, your text messages respond right here, although I do wish this could interface with RCS. When I respond to my wife here, she gets an SMS instead of an RCS. That's annoying, not a big deal. But, you know, I do occasionally launch my apps here on this thing here. Like, let's say I've got an email over here and I want to respond to it here. I know it may sound weird, but I will occasionally click on it, which then does launch Outlook which I'm not going to let load because I don't want you guys to see my emails, but I will occasionally respond to those things there. These things are really, really good. These added value type things do really make the thing even better to use, and I do use these things. Well, I don't actually use the pen because I can't do this very well, but I use the other stuff. So we're talking about Surface Duo 2. So let's talk about bugs, because bugs are a big thing when it comes to Surface Duo. And I can tell you this, my experience, this is not to say everyone's experience, and if you've had a different experience, I am not discounting your experience. I'm just sharing what mine has been. For me, my Duo 2 has been almost completely bug-free. I would actually say that my Z Fold 2, now running One UI 4, has been buggier than my Duo 2 has been after these last updates. For me, touch response is probably still the thing that annoys me most frequently, but it's so close to being perfect. There are just maybe once a day, there will be a moment where I will touch an app or I will do something and it won't respond, and then I'll do it again and then it will respond. That's what we're talking about. At least when I say I've had a touch response problem, I don't mean that I'm just like, it won't work, I don't know what's happening. It's literally like, oh, do it again, and then it's working. Like, we're talking about something that's very, very minimal. With typing is pretty much okay now. I suck at typing on a touchscreen in general, so I tend to use voice to text as much as humanly possible. But typing with Gboard, everything's pretty much fine. Could it be a little bit better? Could it be tuned a bit better than it is now? Probably, but it's in a place now where it really doesn't get in my way anymore, where it did a little bit before. It wasn't ever too crazy for me, but it would miss keystrokes from time to time. That really isn't the thing that's happening for me currently. In terms of launcher bugs, that's something that I still see on my original Duo. Almost every time I pick it up to use it for a second just to test something out, my launcher does something weird where my shelf icons are all on one side for no reason. Weird things like that. Weird sorts of formatting errors. I literally never see this on Duo 2. I just don't get these bugs, these problems on Duo 2. I don't know why that's the case, but that's the case. It's just not something that I see. Where does all that leave us? To me, it leaves us in a really good place. Surface Duo 2 is finally at a place right now where I truly wish it was when it launched. Heck, I wish this was where it was when Duo 1 launched. I really genuinely believe if my Duo experience was the experience that some of these other very large tech reviewers had, we'd be living in a very different world. And unfortunately, Microsoft shipped a device first in a really bad state, and then again in a much better state, but still in a place where it could use a lot of work. And that work is being put in, and it is improving, and it has improved a ton for me. And for me, the dual screen appeal is still as strong as it ever was. I love my Z Fold. I really do, okay? I'm not just some blinded fanboy. I do love my Z Fold, but there's something about Duo 2 that's just different to me. There is something about being able to be on Twitter and finding some sort of news story that I want to cover here, and then being able to go over to my OneNote, launch that, and take some notes or write down some URLs or whatever it may be, and never have to stop doing what I'm doing over here. There's something about being able to be a super duper mega weather nerd and having a nationwide radar here while using something like Radar Scope to drill in much, much more granularly to look at things like velocities and things like that on a smaller scale at the same time. And yes, I know you can do this on the Z Fold, but I'm telling you right now that it is easier on Duo. It just is. I own them both. And even though there have been reviewers that have literally said, typed out the words and clicked publish, that there is not a single use case for Surface Duo or Surface Duo 2, there are in fact an innumerable amount of use cases for Duo and Duo 2, and I do a lot of them. I love my Duo 2, and I have absolutely no interest in moving my primary SIM out of that phone to put it into any other device right now, and that is a testament to the success, because this guy over here, the original one, My sim came out of that one and got put into a Z Fold 2 for several months before Duo 2 came out. We are in a much better place. I would encourage anyone who is curious about Surface Duo 2, because I can talk until I'm blue in the face, and I will. Just you wait. But you aren't going to really get it until you've got it in your hands. You're not really going to know if Duo 2 is for you until you get it into your hands. Here's what I would recommend. Take advantage of a return policy. I'm going to drop a couple of links in the description. Amazon, Best Buy, and Microsoft. The Amazon and Best Buy are affiliate links. If you buy a Duo 2 from there, I will get a kickback, and I do appreciate that. It helps pay my bills. Buy the thing, use it up until the end of your return policy, and if you don't like the thing, if it's not for you, return it. You're just not going to know otherwise. I can't communicate it with you. It's like being in VR. I can tell you that VR is cool, but until you put the headset on and you're in it, you just don't understand. It's not the same. I can't communicate it that well. No one can. So that would be my encouraging piece of advice to you. I think it's very, very good. If you think you're curious, just buy it and return it if it's not for you. Thanks for making it to the end of today's video. And if you did make it all the way to the end, first off, that's great. That helps the algorithm a ton. What else helps the algorithm is if you drop the comment, click that like button, or dislike, that also helps, or hit subscribe so you don't miss the next one. And I will see you on that next video. And until next time, stay nerdy, my friends.